And welcome back to Pokemon Team videos. That's pretty much what I'm just going to be calling it. I've been struggling for a little bit to figure out what to exactly call this series, but we're just going to call it Pokemon Team videos. Seems pretty good. And this suggestion for Pokemon Team videos comes to us from Wade Wilson, who asks, what would Yugimoto's Pokemon team be? Now, I'm going to cheat just a little bit here. Obviously, first off, this is technically Yami, Yugi, Atem. And we're going to be using a combination of Yugi and Atem. The reason for that is, even though they are two separate characters, and I have a beverage, so if you hear me take a pause now, that's just because I'm taking a sip to keep my throat wet. Even though they're two separate characters by all technical definition, there isn't enough to both of them to really make it count towards a full team for either. But because they were together for so long, it makes sense to use them together. Because if I were to use Yama Yugi, what would I be using really? If I were using a Atem, he'd have to have Dark Magician of some kind on his team, an Egyptian type Pokemon, I'm guessing Cofagrigus, the gods of some kind, and then I have to really think on the last one. Maybe a Dark Magician girl stand or something like that, even though really all he had was Dark Magician, not Dark Magician girl. Again, there's a whole story like that. So didn't really make a lot of sense to me to just do that. So what I did instead was combine them. That's what I decided to do. And I feel that worked out pretty well in my case, or in my opinion. So without any further ado, let's get into it. So first up, I wanted something that did represent the Egyptian feel of Yami Yugi, the Millennium Puzzle, Millennium Items, the fact that it is all from ancient Egypt. And while there is a sarcophagus Pokemon, there's nothing Yu-Gi-Oh about Cofagrigus except for like people who play like Pharaoh-based cards, things along those lines. But what we do have is something that does reminisce of hieroglyphics in Unknown. Now, this is just the picture of Unknown. This isn't necessarily the specific Unknown that Yugi would have. He just has it Unknown. And the reason is, basically, the Unknown are basically treated like hieroglyphics. They all look like different letters. This particular one is an F. Some of them even look like exclamation points, and you can read them as a language. That's the point of the Unknown. And that I think works very well towards the whole motif of, the Pharaoh, ancient Egypt, King of Gains kind of spiel. So the Unknown I felt were a fun group to put in there. Yeah. Now this next one I felt I'm like, okay, I need a Pokemon that is reminiscent of Yugi himself. What I mean of that is a Yugimoto, not Yami. I wanted a Pokemon that's kind of this cute kid that eventually does turn into a pretty, not formidable is not the right term, but a pretty capable adult. As we see in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, Yugi pretty much grows into being the modern day Atem. He sounds like when Jaden briefly meets him in the first episode, he sounds exactly like Atem. He pretty much would look like Atem because he's the reincarnation of him to some degree. So I felt I needed something that started out cute, and this is the Yugi the one that represents actual kid Yugi, but then ultimately would turn into Yami. And for that, I went with Kufu. Kufu is this cute little karate bear that ultimately evolves into Urshifu, a very powerful, mature warrior. I felt that really worked because Kufu despite the fact that Kufu is a tough little guy, he is adorable. And Yugi, despite the fact he stands up for his friends, can be tough if he needs to be, is an adorable kid, let's be honest. You're going to be wind up in milkshake prison. For Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge references. My girlfriend likes that a lot. The Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge. I like to read in this museum because it's cool to be surrounded by things older than me. But yeah, it really works out in my eyes because Kufu is Yugi. He's Kid Yugi. He's tough, but he's still adorable. But then Urshifu is clearly adult Yugi, who is very much probably got a kind heart and all that stuff, but is very much a more mature, tougher warrior, adult kid, or duelist in Yugi's case. So I felt Kufu was the perfect little Pokemon to add to his team. So next up, I wanted something that this next one, actually, I'll go with this one because this one I really want to address. Now, we don't have a puzzle Pokemon. We just don't. I don't think we'll ever have a puzzle Pokemon. The Millennium Puzzle is kind of integral to Yugi's character throughout the entirety of the series. The fact that he solved it, Atems' spirit is trapped within it. I felt it was necessary to try to find a Pokemon that could, in fact, represent that. But it was difficult. I'm like, we don't have a puzzle. We don't have we don't have an evolution of a Pokemon. It's like, okay, it's a bunch of floating pieces. They come together, make a better Pokemon, and then they come together and make the complete Pokemon. I'm like, that's not quite what we have. However, we do have something akin to that in a way. And we have Clink. Now, Clink, it's just a bunch of gears. Let's be honest. I believe it's Clink, then it's Clank, and then it's Clink, if I'm not mistaken. I could be very wrong on that. However, what Clink ultimately is in fact a bunch of pieces that if they were, non-living organism in this case, which apparently it is, you would put together to make a full piece, a full item, a full picture, a full working object of some kind, much in the same way that you would use for the Millennium Puzzle. It takes time, it takes effort, it takes practice, but eventually you get it down. And Clink, I feel, is kind of the closest a Pokemon equivalent to the Millennium Puzzle we have. It is technically just pieces of Pokemon, if you will, pieces of metal that come together to make a complete machine creature. And for me, it is the closest we have to the Millennium Puzzle that we're going to get, unfortunately. Maybe one day we'll have something closer, but for now, Clink is the closest we have. So now we basically come down to Yugi's cards, because let's be honest, he's got to have his aces on his team. That's just it. And let's honestly start with his ace, his signature ace, and that would be Dark Magician. Now, it would have been so easy for me to go Mewtwo again. And honestly, I'm going to end up repeating Pokemon throughout the entirety of this series. That's just a given. But the series is still young. I want to wait a little bit if I can before I start repeating Mon that much. And I'm like, okay, so Dark Magician. What is Dark Magician? He's purple. He's a magician. I'm like, I don't know. And then I'm like, okay, I'm struggling here. What does he unleashes magic. What's magic in the Pokemon world? Psychic types, maybe ghost and fairies. Those are the closest you get to magic. Maybe dragon if you're struggling a little bit to figure things out. But I'm like, okay, this is getting tough because I'm like, okay, no psychic really, or no ghost fits Dark Magician at all. Fairy is just kind of not really. And then Psychic, I'm like, okay, think what we got. And then I'm like, well, there's one other part of Yugi that can tie with the Dark Magician and the Psychic type, and that's the fact that Yugi is the king of games. He is arguably the best duelist in the world, and the king of games and the best games and all that. Like he can win and play any game there is. I'm like, okay, is there a Pokemon that can represent the king of games? And lo and behold, because I didn't play the Isle of Armor or Crown Tundra, I didn't play that. I just didn't. I don't like the DLC content idea really at all. So I don't go for it myself. There's Calyrex, who is the High King Pokemon. It is literally a Pokemon that's got King in its title. So I'm like, all right, and it's a Psychic type that works. I'm like, okay, this works out 100%. Like, this is perfect. Calyrex fits one. Like, again, it's the king. It's pretty much the king Pokemon. It's the king of games Pokemon, and it's a Psychic type, which lends itself to the magic aspect of Dark Magician as well. The only downside is it's not purple. I don't think Calyrex's shiny is purple either. No, I think it's okay. What? Sorry, I'm just looking at Calyrex's shiny right now, because if Calyrex's shiny is purple, which I'm pretty certain it's not, then it really does actually fit in as the best Pokemon to be the yeah. Oh no, well, actually, I mean, it's not purple. It's not like the green of it's not purple, but like its cape and stuff and the little like thing on top of its head, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, that looks a little purple. And it gets to ride a purple Ghost Steed if it's riding what's the name of the damn thing? Spectre or Spectrier. So yeah, argument made, not well. I feel like Calyrex is probably the best Pokemon for this. So Calyrex is Yugi's Dark Magician. But what is the Dark Magician without the Dark Magician girl? Still one of the most popular Yu-Gi-Oh monsters there is, but beside the point. So I'm like, okay, what's Dark Magician girl in this world? What is the Dark Magician Pokemon? And I'm like, okay, it has to be either psychic or fairy, da 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 da. And ultimately, I came to the conclusion that it would have. I'm like, okay, it needs to be also be a kind of. It needs to be more of a female type Pokemon than Calyrex is for obvious reasons. It's Dark Magician Girl, and ultimately, I'm like, I could have gone Gardevoir, but I'm like, I don't know about that one. I ultimately went with Hatterini mostly because Hatterini is definitely a witch in design. It's got the hat. It's very elegant. Like I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Hatterinis are psychic fairy type. If I'm not mistaken. Let's see here. I'm trying to find Hatterini right now on Cerebi. Hold on. Hatterini. There you go, Hatterini. You're a psychic fairy, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, psychic fairy. So that plays in very well to the magic aspect too. Ultimately, it's not the strongest choice I probably could have gone with, but I feel like it's the most obvious. It's the one that just screams witch/sorcerer and female Pokemon to fit Dark Magician Girl. So that was my choice for the Dark Magician Girl Pokemon of the group. Again, a Gardevoir could have probably worked just as well, but I felt Hatterini was the right choice in this case. Finally, we come down to the last one. And the last one, I think you all, if you're familiar with Yu-Gi-Oh, will probably know which one it ultimately came to. It was... There are 3 Egyptian gods Yugi ultimately ended up with, because he won them all. He was the king of games. He had the Egyptian god cards. But let's be honest, Yugi's signature Egyptian card was Slifer the Sky Dragon. And luckily, we just so happened to have an elemental Sky Dragon in Pokemon, and that is Rayquaza. Now, because he's the king of games, I did want, and I think I may have actually given Rayquaza to another character a little while back. I can't remember. I might have, but oh well. I guess I'm starting to repeat now. It still made the most sense. It's Rayquaza, and I went with Mega Rayquaza for kind of obvious reasons. It's the long serpentine body like Slifer has. It looks just more menacing and powerful, just like Slifer does. If you're talking about like intimidation looking, I feel like Slifer might be the most intimidating looking of the group of the Egyptian gods. Winged Dragon of Ra is fine, but it does look more like a flaming chicken, as they joke about Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge, than an actual like dragon. And Obelisk is definitely an imposing monster, but Slifer has the sheer size aspect where like it wrapped around the entire blimp, the double mouth, the fact that it looks like it's literally bearing down on you, where Obelisk looms. I don't know. I always liked Slifer. The Slifer was always my favorite. Unfortunately, and don't get me wrong, I say unfortunately in the context of this video. Unfortunately, Rayquaza's shiny is black and I think yellow, not red. Otherwise, this would have been a perfect fit. I'm sure in Pokemon's universe, you could theoretically find an alternate version of the shiny where it is in fact red. But yeah, I mean, look, it is a elongated sky dragon that is legendary in power. it is clearly the best match for Slifer in this case, and that's clearly Yugi's Pokemon. So, just so we're clear, we have the Millennium Puzzle in Clink, the Egyptian hieroglyphics that you could find on the Millennium Puzzle and that Yugi and Atem could read, an unknown. Yugi Moto himself in Kufu, which would eventually evolve into Atem or Urshifu, or adult Yugi in Urshifu, Dark Magician in Calyrex, Dark Magician Girl in Hatterini, and finally Slifer the Sky Dragon in Rayquaza. Mega Rayquaza to be precise. So ultimately, that is my pick for the team of Yugi Moto and Atem. What do you think about my team selection? Do you agree with this team selection? Would you have your own team for him? I mean, would your team differ? Let me know in the comments below what you would do different if you decided to do something different. But until then, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. As always, you want us to review something, put in the comments below. Let us know. We'll do a review of it at some point. And ideas for who would win. Star Wars, Superhero, Magic, What If, Green Lantern videos, Pokemon team videos, the shebang. Or the whole shebang, I should say. Put in the comments below. Let me know. Hit that bell if you want notifications. I will see you next time, folks. Later.